Hey guys, it's Amit. So in today's video, what I wanted to talk about is how much should a parent or legal guardian save for their kid's college. So I've created a spreadsheet for it. I plan on walking you guys through that spreadsheet, but of course, if you guys would like a copy of the spreadsheet, include a comment below and I'll be sure to share the spreadsheet with you for free. So let's get into it, right? Let's talk about the spreadsheet. So the first thing that you'll notice when you look at the spreadsheet is there's certain cells that are highlighted in yellow, others in green, and still others in black. The ones that are in yellow are basically your input cells. Those are the cells that you should modify based on your individual facts and circumstances. The ones that are in green, I wouldn't necessarily recommend making any changes to them, but if you really want to, you could play around with it quite a bit. And the ones that are in black are the ones that I would say do not change. Okay, they are formula driven, and if you're going to change those, it may create some problems with those formulas, and then the spreadsheet may not work as effectively anymore. So let's talk about some of these cells. So the first one, at least from an inputs perspective, is number of years before your child goes to college. So in the United States, typically kids go to college around 18 years old. Okay, so if your kid is, say, 8 at this point in time, there's basically 10 years before they go off into college. So then you would enter 10 into that field. Now, certain people, they start their children's education fund well in advance, right? So once those kids pop out or they're born, people start contributing towards their college education from then on. And if that is the case, right, enter the appropriate amount into the field. The next cell here is the annual total cost of college, which includes your tuition, room and board, and all of it, right? So the way to get that information is you can take one of two paths. If you have a pretty good idea where your kid is going to go to college, right, just go to the website, pull the tuition, room and board, pull all that information, dump it into the spreadsheet, and you are done. If you don't have an idea in terms of what that is, College Board basically provides some estimates in terms of what this looks like currently. So what they'll say, and you'll see that in this column over here, column F, but basically they say that if your kid is going to go to a 4-year private university, the estimated cost of it on an average basis annually is $42,000. So similarly, a 4-year in-state public university is $21,000 annually. An out-of-state public university is $34,000 annually. A 2-year public university is $15,000 annually, and a 2-year private university is $28,000. So you could use one of those numbers and plug it into this cell as well, just to give you a guide in terms of what the current cost is. And as I said, these are average numbers, right? So they may vary depending on which university you're looking at, and so on and so forth. The next thing that is important to think about is how much you are willing to contribute towards your kid's college. So some people may say, hey, I want to contribute 100%. That's the whole reason I'm doing this. I'm starting early, so I want to cover off 100% of my kid's tuition, room and board, you name it. Other people may say that, hey, I only want to cover 50% of it. I want my kid to have some skin in the game. I want them to get a job, or I want them to get some scholarships. I want them to perform well, in school or athletics or whatever. And others may say, hey, go get financial aid or whatever. So those things kind of vary depending on the individual and the families and so on. So you have to have an assessment in terms of how much you're willing to contribute to college. Okay, so at least for me, what I've done basically, right, is just put some numbers in here. I've said that, okay, we've got 10 more years before my kid goes to college. I've taken this 21,000 number and just said, okay, a 4-year in-state public university, right? And then I've gone on to say that I'll cover off 100% of it. And then the next cell here, what it basically is a factor that shows that what is the estimated increase in college annually. So currently what's happening is college fees, so tuition, room and board, are going up at about 5% every year. And it's significantly ahead of inflation and significantly ahead of wage earnings and so on. So that's why I put this cell in green, right? Because this is how costs are currently going up. And that's why I wouldn't necessarily recommend a change there. So if all of this holds true, right, the total estimated cost of college is going to be $147,000. Okay, the workings that you'll be able to see in terms of how this $147,435 was determined is actually in this tab. But basically, what it'll show is, what is your first year cost of college in 10 years, your second year, third year, fourth year, and the total of all that is $147,000. And then the next row here basically says the estimated amount you plan on contributing to college is also $147,000. And this is where this field was actually irrelevant, right? So as I said, if you're willing to contribute 100% towards your kid's college, then this number is going to mirror it, right? It's going to be the same in both of these cells. But say if you were to say, you know what, I'm just going to pay 50% of my kid's college, right? So if you drop this down to 50, this becomes half, right? If you say that, hey, I'm only going to pay a quarter of my kids' college, they got to figure 75% of that on their own. That further goes ahead and changes some of this number as well. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. The ones that are in black, you don't want to play around with, okay, because they're formula driven and they will automatically change based on the numbers you're entering into the yellow fields and potentially even the green fields. So we'll show one more example, right? So say you have a kid that's just born, right? So he's going to have about 18 years before he gets to college, and say you're gung-ho that you want him to go to a private university, him or her to a private university, right? You can change that to 42,000, and then obviously these numbers will start changing. Then the total estimated cost of college 18 years from now is 435,000. If you're willing to pay 100% of that, that number is basically going to align. And if you go to this spreadsheet, it'll basically show you, okay, it's going to be 100 grand at that point in time for the first year, 106 for the second year, and so on and so forth, at that 5% increase every year. So that's how the top portion of the spreadsheet works. Then we go to this section right here, because what we want to arrive at is how much should you be putting in every month, right? How much should you be contributing every month such that you can get to this amount and basically be able to pay for your kids' college, right? So what this says is, how much have you saved for college? So if you've had nothing today, right, then it's basically zero. Some people may say that, hey, I've got $5,000 that I've saved up already. And if you do that, it's obviously going to change the amount that you effectively have to save up on an ongoing basis to arrive at this number such that you have all the amounts ready for college. The other thing that I've included here is your investment growth rate, right? So this is based on an S&P 500 average return of about 8% over the last, several decades on an average basis. So that's what I've said, it's about 8%. Now, I know some people may be a bit more conservative. They may say that, hey, maybe I should just think about 5% or 4%. You can definitely change these numbers if you would like, right? But I've included that 8%. I've kind of kept it green because I'm assuming that a lot of people are going to have these money invested into something like the S&P 500, just so they have a diversified portfolio and are reaping the rewards of that. So that's how that cell works. But if you want to, you can definitely change it to like 5% as an example, and the numbers are essentially just going to change. Okay, the lesser you get from a return or growth rate perspective, the more you're going to need to contribute. That obviously makes sense, right? And of course, if you're going to think that you're going to generate a 10% return, it's going to substantially drop this amount further. So that's how this spreadsheet works. Okay, so as I was saying, if I were to put my own personal circumstances in, like I've got a 7-year-old, so he'll probably be in college in 11 years, right? Let's just say public university education, let's just say 100%. Annual estimated cost of college, I'm not going to change that. So he's going to have $155,000 that he's basically going to have to pay for college. And let's just say I have quite a bit saved up already. So let's just say I have $20,000 saved up. And I'm generating an 8% return every year, right? That means that I should save just about $506 and invest $506 into the markets. The next thing, people typically ask is, hey, okay, so then what vehicle should I use? Okay, I plan on saving this $500 a month such that I arrive at this number. Now, what should I do with it? And what I would recommend, right, and I've covered off on this in other videos, and I'll include a link for it as well. But the best option, at least in the US, is these state-offered 529 plans. These 529 plans, the best thing about them is all the gains or all your investment returns are basically going to be tax-free. So it's very, very powerful, right? So if you invest in something like the S&P 500 as an example, you're getting, an 8% return. So all of those gains that get mounted up over the next, 10 years, 18 years, however long it is before your kid goes off to college, all of that is essentially going to be tax-free, assuming all of those funds are being used for educational related purposes. Now, sometimes the question is asked, hey, what if my kid does not go to college? I've done all this stuff, now he doesn't want to go or she doesn't want to go. What do I do in those particular instances? Well, the simple answer to that is the 529 plan, the way it is effectively structured, is it can be used for a wide variety of beneficiaries. Okay, so you can give it to relatives and people in close proximity to your family, and there's a lot of benefit there in terms of how you can give the money out. The other thing I'll quickly note here is that the 529 plan can also be used for kindergarten to 12th grade. You can use it for private school if you want to put them in something like that. You can use them for various activities and things. There's actually a pretty broad ways in which you can utilize your 529 plan for educational purposes. And worst case scenario, right? If nothing works, there's nowhere or there's no one that you want to give these funds out to, then basically just pull the money out, right? So, you're saving these money, and it was supposed to be tax-free from a gains perspective. You contributed them on a post-tax perspective anyway. You pull the money out, you pay taxes on it. Now, you do have to pay a 10% penalty if it's not utilized for education purposes as well, right? But you have all of it, so you just, there's nothing else to do with it. You don't want to give it out to anybody else, so just go ahead and pay the penalty on it. It's also a penalty on the gains, and go ahead and pay the taxes on the gains anyway. So I hope you got value from this video. If you did, definitely subscribe to the channel and hit the like button as well, and I will see you soon.